endless mysteries haunting Austin, Texas. Who killed these girls? It was just before 11 p.m. closing time. Amy and her friend Sarah Harbison were visiting their friends at the yogurt shop. Sarah's sister Jennifer and Eliza Thomas worked there behind the counter. Police say the girls were bound and gagged with their own clothes. Then the monsters shot each girl execution style in the head with a .22 caliber gun. And most of the evidence went up in smoke.
Initially, when the police officers spotted smoke and the firefighters were called in, it was thought to be a kitchen fire at a chain establishment. However, after hundreds of gallons of water were used to douse the three-alarm blaze, 2 firefighters stumbled upon a horrific scene.
It's a foot that I saw.
The bodies of 3 of the girls were stacked on top of one another. Amy, apparently still alive, pulled herself up and tried to crawl to safety. Her final moments, sheer terror. She was pistol whipped, then shot again with a .38. The second bullet was fatal. The Austin cops worked tirelessly to solve this case.
It's Sully and Jones, and this is our very first episode to kick off kitchen table research. So we are going to tell you a little bit about ourselves and our background and how this podcast came to be. Typically, we will jump right into cases as we don't really have time for chit chat here. But let me tell you about Jones. She's my co-host. Are you there, Jones?
Yes.
All right. She is a nurse practitioner and has a specialty in adolescents with psychological issues, abuse and trauma, eating disorders, and other abnormal behavior in adolescents. Jones also led a statewide suicide prevention program for teens. She says, quote, "I have followed interesting cases for 50 years. I am a mental health nurse practitioner and am interested in people's behavior and psychopathy. I like to investigate what makes people do what people do." So she is going to bring her medical and psychiatric knowledge to our cases.
Sully has a bachelor's in psychology and finished pre-med with a specialty in mortuary sciences. She has also worked in psychiatry in a crisis unit and an intensive outpatient mental health program. But the last few years of her career, she has worked in a funeral home, picking up bodies, working with the ME's office, and working with families who are grieving. She will bring her unique knowledge and approach to each case. She is also a badass and my daughter.
Because of my mom's interest in human behavior and true crime, I have studied cases with her throughout the last 20 years. We, as a team, are here to bring you new information and facts about cases we have followed for years. We have also sat with a few experts in their own field to bring you the best content that other podcasts just don't have. We will thank our experts accordingly in our references section, which will begin at the beginning of every episode. And I do want to let you guys know we do put together a pretty big reference section just because both of us are used to writing in a professional style writing. And so we're used to quoting things. And so we'd rather be overquoted and use more references than not acknowledge other people's work. So at Kitchen Table Research, we do the research so you don't have to. We have put together an extensive library of evidence on our Instagram page as well. So go visit us at kitchen.table.research, and each case will have its own story saved under our bio. Click the circle. For instance, today you're going to click yogurt shop for this episode and the next episode, and pictures will play in order of how we present the story. To read comments or look at pictures for longer, hold a finger down over the picture or you can screenshot them. Every episode has its own circle. I know not everyone is an Instagram expert, so if you have any questions or would like to reach out to us, do that through our email, which is kitchen.table.research@gmail.com. You can follow us as we put the clues together. But if you're listening at work or driving, don't worry, you don't need our Instagram to get the full story. Okay, so let's go over our reference section for this episode, which includes the book Who Killed These Girls by Beverly I can never say her name. Beverly Lowry.
Good job.
This book is great. So if you're into true crime, this is a great reference. We have also listened to True Crime Garage take on this, My Favorite Murder, and we have both followed the investigative work of Erin Moriarty for 48 hours. There's both a TV episode and a podcast on her work on this case. Jones also read Corey Mitchell's book, Murdered Innocence, and as always, we take information from the Austin American Statesman and Texas Monthly. Since this is our first episode, I'd like to give a special thanks to a few people, but we're going to do that at the end. Our first story takes place where we currently live in Texas, where everything, including crime, is bigger.
This horrific crime, and it truly is a horrific crime, known as the Yogurt Shop Murders, happens in Austin, Texas on December 6, 1991 at an I Can't Believe It's Yogurt Shop. The victims were 4 minor girls, 3 attending Lanier High School, Jennifer and Sarah Harbison, their sisters, and Eliza Thomas. Amy Ayers, being the youngest at 13, attended Burnett Middle School. 2 girls were employed and working part-time to help pay for their cars, and the 2 younger girls were helping out at closing time and just hanging out at the yogurt shop on a Friday night. 3 of the girls, the sisters and Amy, were having a sleepover that night, but that did not happen. The 4 girls would be tortured, raped, killed, and the building set ablaze before the first officer is on the scene. As over 300 suspects are looked into, the case goes cold. Investigators soon narrow down on 4 boys, which do not match the profile, nor does the gun match, and we will later find out the DNA will not match either. With this, the boys are released from prison, and the families and investigators are back at square one. The murder of the 4 girls remains unsolved after 30 years. The parents, the public, the wrongly arrested and convicted, media, and the court system deserves the truth. The use of DNA forensic testing is getting closer to solving the case, but there are no leads currently. The FBI is holding a matching DNA sample, which they have yet to release the findings of the sample to Austin investigators. DNA that was obtained via vaginal swab from one of the girls at autopsy provides a 16 allele profile, which can match thousands and thousands of people around the world. FBI says because of this presumed large number of people with the 16 allele profile, it has no evidentiary value in this case. We therefore offer the story and our theories, but no conclusions on this podcast. Jennifer and Sarah Harbison are biologic sisters. Their biologic mother is Barbara Harbison Sirachi, who speaks in Beverly Lowry's book, quote, "City life had opened my mind to new possibilities. And when the girls were 5 and 2.5, I left both Mike Harbison and New Boston, Texas. And I set off in my little hatchback, figuring that I and my daughters could lead more interesting and informed lives in Austin and have more fun. The sister's biologic father is Mike Harbison. Jennifer is the older sister. She's a petite girl, weighs 86 pounds, and is 5 foot tall. She is involved in Future Farmers of America and runs track for Lanier High School. Her boyfriend is Sammy Buchanan, also a senior at LHS, and the couple has plans to attend college and to marry after graduation. The boyfriend and girlfriend have traded their senior rings. So that night, Jennifer is wearing Sammy's Lanier High School ring, gold with an emerald stone with his FFA and sports symbol on the sides. Jen and Sammy have intercourse that afternoon before Jen reports for work. This is going to become important later in the case. Jen drives a 1991 dark blue Chevy. Sarah Harbison is Jen's little sister. She's a sophomore at LHS and is also involved in FFA. Actually, the sisters are raising lambs together. She's 5'1" and 125 pounds. She has been dating Mike McCathern recently, and he gave her his senior ring to wear. And again, this is going to be important to the case.
So our next victim is Eliza Thomas, and she's 17 years old. She has dark hair with brown eyes. Her biological mother is Maria Thomas. She is divorced from her father, James, who has remarried another woman. Eliza is a lover of animals and wants to attend Texas A&M and ultimately become a vet or a model. Her mother was very into fashion, being from Spain, and so Eliza was also interested in fashions. Eliza is also a part of FFA and is raising a pig. Eliza has a 13-year-old sister who's named Sonora, and they are very close. Sonora would often ride her bike to go see her big sister at work. Eliza drives a green Carmen Ghia. She is mechanically inclined and wants car parts for Christmas. She has just broken up with her boyfriend who keeps prank calling her and kind of messing with her. And then this is what Beverly says. This is a quote from Maria, Eliza's mom. Bereaved parents rarely talk about what their dead children might have grown up to be, but Maria went all out. Eliza, she declared, was special. She read constantly and had a gift for language. She could have become a writer or even a poet, but Eliza's father, James, took his daughter at her word when she said she wanted to go to Texas A&M and become a vet, that she had always been nuts about animals. For a couple of years, she kept a bowl of crawfish, then white rats. James Thomas thought FFA was the best thing that had ever happened to Eliza, end quote.
And finally, the youngest victim, her name is Amy Ayers. She's 13 years old and the youngest of the four women. She is through and through cowgirl. She dresses in jeans, Western shirts, and often wears a cowboy hat. She is in the 8th grade and has been allowed to join FFA as a junior member. Amy also wants to be a vet, like some of the other girls we've talked about. Amy's biologic parents are Bob and Pam Ayers. She has an older brother, Sean. Sean and her were raising pigs. Asked if his daughter was, quote, something of a cowgirl, Bob Ayers said no, she was all cowgirl. Knowing that the Harbison girls took special precautions to look after their young daughter, they'd often promised that nothing would happen to Amy when she was with them. Amy would be wearing her brother Sean's leather jacket that night with a borrowed heart belt buckle from her mother. A belt from Amy's clothing and Sean's leather jacket would never be found.
All right, well, next let's talk about the area of town that they are in. We're obviously in Austin, Texas, and we want listeners to understand kind of what's going on in Austin in the early 90s. Austin is kind of considered a smaller town. It's considered safe. It's not known as one of the bigger cities in Texas yet. Again, a quote from Bev's book, just to go out in the early 90s, mall crawling had become a fact of life for suburban kids all over the country. A new version of hanging out on Main Street or driving up and down in their cars. Austin was no different. Weekend nights, kids from all over the city either drove to or were dropped off at North Cross Mall to window shop, eat pizza, smoke cigarettes, drink sodas, maybe go to a movie or even ice skate on the only rink within 200 miles. So when I was a kid, we actually lived in this area of town, and I've actually ice skated at North Cross Mall. It used to be huge and gorgeous, and I remember on Christmas, they had it decked to the hills. It was really a beautiful mall. Now, what remains of this mall is just a large strip center with like a Best Buy, Walmart, chain restaurants. I actually got my laser hair removal done in this strip center. So again, Bev states, quote unquote, the Anderson Lane, I can't believe it's yogurt shop was a neighborhood gathering place where families and young couples went after shopping or a movie. And sometimes even Governor Ann Richards stopped in.
So days and months before the murder, there are 8 robberies in this hillside strip mall, and one owner at the mall bars the windows. She is concerned. We believe this is not a coincidence and that the perps were casing the place out. Therese Price, known as Reese, is the manager of the yogurt shop. She's about 24 years old, and one day hears a man drop down through the ceiling into the bathroom, which is in the back of the shop. This person either exits the front of the shop during a rush or exit the space above the drop ceiling the same way he came in. And later, when Reese goes in the bathroom, a tile has been removed and there are footprints on the toilet. In addition, Reese and Jennifer, and we're going to refer to as Jen, are getting freaked out by a separate stalking behavior. For example, phone calls with hang-ups at the shop. Reese's apartment is broken into, and her panties were neatly stacked on top of the kitchen counter. She files a police report, and that investigation never reveals a suspect. Reese was supposed to be working Jen's shift that night. Reese and Jen look a lot alike. Both are petite with long hair. A man is reported by a customer about 4 days before the murder who comes in to buy a soda. He's described as a tall and thin white man with blonde hair, 23 years old. He's skittish and he drives a light-colored pickup. This man is watching the back door, which if you go to our Instagram table.research and look at the map, you are sitting on the right side of the shop. His line of sight would allow him to see into the back part of the shop.
So let's go into December 6th, 1991, which is the day of the murder. We did quite a bit of work combining resources to make this timeline. So this is actually our timeline. So let's start at 7 p.m. to the 8 p.m. hour. Eliza's going to work that hour alone. Her green Carmen Gia will still be in the parking lot when police arrive. Quote, around this same time, Jorge Barney was closing the party house for the night. He'd owned the store, previously called the Party Pig, for only 3 months and was working late in anticipation of the Christmas season. He already had a Santa Claus on his roof, complete with sleighs and reindeer. He then walked 3 stores down to Mr. Gaddy's for some takeout. Barney's office was in the back of the store, near the wall he shared with the yoga shops. And that's where he would work on his books while watching a little TV and eating his pizza. This guy is literally sitting within feet of the crime, and he apparently doesn't see or hear anything. We're definitely going to have questions about this Jorge Barney character later on in the story.
At 7:50, Jen is taking her little sister Sarah and her friend Amy to the mall. They plan to stay until Jen picks them up around 9 when the mall closes. The girls have never been alone to the mall, so this is the first time, and of course they've gotten extra precautions from both sets of parents. At 8 o'clock, Jen's a few minutes late for her shift at the yogurt shop, but she goes and picks the girls up at the mall, and then she's going to go back at 9 o'clock and pick them up again. At 8:15 to 8:30, Lucille Jones enters the shop and sees 2 hoodlums. She describes one as Mexican and one as Anglo and states they do not belong in this neighborhood. She says there is something between them on the set table. Originally, Lucille states it's coins, but later in testimony, years later, she states it was bullets. Lucille says she is so weirded out, she is thinking about calling the girls' parents. Lucille, come on, let's don't start the racist stuff this early in 1990. Lucille pays for her yogurt with a check for $2 and something cents. So I believe she's going to have to be our colloquial Karen in this case. We have one in every case. Her check will be found by investigators under the cash register. However, these 2 hoodlums never come forward on the case. We don't think they were a part of this crime, and there could be several reasons for them not coming forward. First, being that the police wanted to arrest teenage boys for this crime. Or secondly, they could be illegal Hispanic who had crossed the border and not have any paperwork. At 9 p.m., Jen leaves the yogurt shop to go pick up the younger girls. They drive back to the strip center, and in the same shopping center, there's a Mr. Gaddy's, which is a pizza place. It closes at 10. And the 2 younger girls walk down to get pizza. At 9:30, the girls are back with pizza, and Maria, Eliza's mom, comes in. She says that only the girls are in the shop at this time. Jen and Eliza are up front, and the 2 younger girls are eating their pizza at a table in the front part of the store. Eliza speaks to her little sister Sonora on the phone, and as this is happening, several more patrons come into the store. At 9:45, Jen takes a phone call from her boyfriend, Sammy. It is thought the 2 younger girls are now in the back of the shop doing duties. Sarah and Amy had agreed to help with restocking and nightly closing duties in return for her sister taking them to the mall. And then 3 girls, excluding Eliza, were to have a sleepover that night. The pizza box is found on a table in the back during the police investigation, and it is marked on your map.
So again, we've gone through this timeline so many times trying to figure out who might have seen who might have talked to who, or who would have been a witness to something. Starting at this point in the timeline, the times are so close that we really tried to break it down almost minute by minute. So, obviously, this is where the story is going to unfortunately change. A man who we are going to refer to as Army Man because he's wearing a fatigue jacket arrives at the store at 9:47. He is a suspect in this case. He approaches the counter, and we know that Maria is still there, meaning that Maria would have seen her daughter's killer. In the next hour, several patrons come in because the movies have just gotten out, and we'll discuss these patrons as they come in. The reason that we know that Maria sees Army Man is because a third man by the name of Daryl Croft comes in a minute later. He's a frequent flyer at the yogurt shop and he knows Maria, and they have a quick conversation, and then Maria leaves. So Daryl Croft is in the store now with Army Man. Daryl was coming from dinner with two of his girls that were friends, and the two women sat in the car as Daryl got yogurt. He has a police security background and states he is very aware of his surroundings. And when he enters, the Army Man gives him the creeps. When Daryl enters the shop, there are two couples sitting at tables reviewing the menu. So we kind of have a lot going on here. Maria and Daryl have a quick conversation. Army Man is standing at the counter where you order, and then there are several patrons sitting around at the tables. So Army Man is standing in front of Daryl in line and asks about the lights on his vehicle and if Daryl is a cop. Daryl responds, "No, I work in security." Army Man tells Daryl to order in front of him, and Daryl says no. So Army Man asks for a 7-Up. Eliza, who's helping the men, say, "We don't have 7-Up, we only have Sprite." And so Army Man gets his Sprite and goes to the back part of the shop where the restroom is located. Daryl asks Eliza where he is going, and she responds, "There's a bathroom back there." Daryl orders and stalls for about 5 minutes because he really wants to see this Army Man leave. But unfortunately, Daryl leaves without seeing this man leaves. And actually, Daryl is so concerned that he forgets his yogurt. And so Eliza yells back, "Daryl, you forgot your yogurt." He walks back up to the counter and then he leaves. And again, he still does not see this Army Man leave. We believe Army Man is waiting for Daryl to leave because he would have been able to hear everything in this small shop. We're not sure whether Army Man leaves out the front door or the back door because these doors come into play later. But because Sarah and Amy are in the back part of the store, we believe that he would have exited through the front like a natural patron. There's a lot of questions about this man. He's described as being between 20 and 25 years old, 150 to 175 pounds, white, 6 feet tall, large, pointy nose, clean shaven, dark hair, and has a deep, distinctive voice. He's described as being weird and fidgety, and he is called, again, we already said that, he's called Army Man because he's wearing a fatigue style military jacket. 9 minutes later at 9:57, Daryl has left, Maria has left, and no one actually witnesses Army Man leave. So it's only about 3 minutes later at 10 p.m., and I'll hand it back over to you, Jones.
So at 10 p.m., all of the stores in the strip mall are closing or closed. The party store closed at 7, but the manager remains in his office catching up on paperwork. Remember, his office shares the south wall with the yogurt shop. Between 10 and 10:20, James Thomas, who's Eliza's dad, and his wife stopped by on their way home. And yes, Maria was Eliza's mom, but the two are divorced, and James, her father, has gotten remarried. At this time, James reports that only the 4 girls are in the shop. 10:30 to 11, there are several reports of a suspicious truck in the parking lot. There is never a sighting of any other kind of car. Remember, 4 days before this crime took place, several people reported a suspicious tan truck in the parking lot. Is it the same truck? Who knows? Between 10 and 10:40, the last movies get out of the theater, so several customers come in. No suspicious activity is reported inside the shop during this time. At 10:40, which is now 20 minutes until closing, we and the other experts on this case believe 2 men enter the shop. Army Man is believed to be one of these men. He no longer has on his fatigue jacket. He has changed his appearance with a baseball cap and a dark jacket with a hoodie. The second man, and we're going to call him Khaki Man, accompanies Army men, and they are witnessed sitting at the back booth. This booth is located closest to the register and furthest away from the front door. It is marked on your map. This booth and the men sitting at it is important also to this case. Let's go back a little bit. To note, the first time Army man enters the store at 9:47, he's in the shop for approximately 10 minutes. Then he's gone for around 40 minutes, and we cannot account for this 40-minute time frame. Then he re-enters the shop around 10:40 with Khaki Man. This 40 minutes is confirmed by the patrons that were in the shop during this 40-minute time frame and by the witnesses reporting the two men sitting in the truck in the parking lot during this 40 minutes. The two men know that all four girls are inside. We believe they changed clothes, revise their plan now that they have four victims, not just two. We conjecture that perhaps they parked that truck in the back alley by the back door of the yogurt shop and walk around to the front and enter, as normal patrons would, through the front door. If this is true, then the truck's going to remain in the alley during the crime. Khaki Man has his back to the register and is looking out the windows with his boot up on the booth nonchalantly, while Army Man, now dressed in black, sits facing the yogurt counter. These two men never come forward. The information about Army and Khaki Man comes from Tim and Margaret, who are grabbing yogurt after their movie. The report of the two men in the booth comes from the last sale of the night Tim and Margaret made. It's rung up at 10:42. Eliza is cleaning the counters behind the cash register, and Jennifer is cleaning the eating area, flipping chairs, refilling napkins, doing basic clothing duties. Jennifer is cleaning the yogurt counter. She's turned around and she's got her hands inside the yogurt vats because, of course, they have to be sanitized and sterilized every night. When Tim walks up to the counter to order, Margaret's sitting at a table near the yogurt counter. She can see the reflection in the window of Khaki Man, who is facing the windows. Margaret describes him in his reflection as a large man, both in black hoodies. She states they are odd and their table is empty. Neither have placed an order. Margaret gives this description of Khaki Man: large, bald, thick neck, padded jacket, dumb, bulky, scary. An Army Man is shaggy, straight hair, wearing tinted glasses, wearing jeans and lace-up boots. His face is dark because they both have on hats under their hoodies, which are pulled up over their ball caps. Tim and Margaret decide to take their order to go at 10:47. At 10:50, witnesses see Jennifer flip the close sign and put the key in the front door.
So these two men are still going to be inside when Jennifer puts the key in the door. So this is where, because it's a 30-year-old crime and we know more after people go to trial and testimonies come out and new experts look at the case, we're going to put together our theory. So basically, this is a 40-minute crime between the time that Jennifer puts the key in the door and by the time the fire is set at the end, it will have been 40 minutes, which is very quick when you have 2 men and 4 women in the back of this small area. I'm going to place a trigger warning here. Honestly, all of our episodes, we're going to get really into some pretty graphic stuff, and we don't feel as if we are disrespecting our victims because we want people to understand truly what victims go through. If you have a sexual assault, rape, trigger warning, this might not be the best podcast overall for you because that's basically what all of our stories are based around. Okay, so let's get back to this crime. At 11:03, the no sale key is hit. This is believed to be the start of the quote, robbery. Jen is on a ladder cleaning out the yogurt machines, as we had stated, with her back to the dining area. Eliza is closing out the register and cleaning the main counter up front. Our theory is that one of these men sitting in the left booth walks up to the counter around 11:02 and asks for a cup of ice with a can of Coke. This cup of ice and Coke, which were never poured together, are going to be found by the Austin Fire Department. The ice will still be frozen when the officers get there. That's how fast this crime happens. So Eliza gets the Coke and bends down to fill the cup with ice under the counter. Jen's busy, so neither women really have their sights set on these two guys. When Eliza stands up, we believe she has a gun pointed at her head, and he asks for the money out of the register. So Eliza, we think most likely removed the till, and that Jen is forced down from the ladder at gunpoint, and both girls are escorted from the front of the store to the back of the store. In the back, Amy and Sarah are cleaning. The pizza box and the till will later be found by police, and it's marked on our map. Part of this back area, there's a large shelf that's holding styrofoam products. We believe that the two men shove all four girls under this back shelf to get control over the scene, and we believe that they're lined up in order of Jen, Amy, Sarah, and Eliza. And we believe that at gunpoint, they are told to strip down because their clothes are not torn or tousled. They're actually neatly folded into a stack, besides some of their undergarments, which will be used to bound and gag them. Other clothing not used in the girls' binds are neatly folded into a stack. Sarah will slide her boyfriend Mike McCathern's ring in the pile of clothing. She does not take off her cross and another ring, which will later be burned into her. We believe that these girls are under the counter. They're naked. They're bound with her own underwear. And the first girl that's going to be pulled out is Amy. I'm going to hand it back over to Jones, and we are going to get into the sexual assaults of these women.
Yeah, this is pretty gruesome stuff. Amy is raped first by man number one. We don't know which man, Army or Khaki Man, is the first donator of sperm. So we have to now refer to them as man number one and man number two. Amy is forcefully vaginally raped from behind. Man number one tries to take her own belt, which we believe he wants to strangle her with it, but he isn't able to, so instead he takes her sock, ties it in a half-hitch knot around her neck. Ligatures are used for control. They can be used to allow the victim to breathe, pass out, etc. We don't know if this is what the ligature was used for, but it is common in rapes, and it was used to control Amy. There will be much speculation about Amy's position and why she wasn't lined up with her friends near the seat of the fire. As a result, she was burned less severely. Her skin was blistered and raw, but it was not charred. In police photos taken from the back door, she looks almost like the distant ghost of a naked dead girl, and that's from Corey Mitchell's book. Meanwhile, Jen is being raped by man number two. She is not found bound or gagged, and we're not sure if she gets out of her bindings or they burn, but the ME does not find any ligature marks. Jennifer shows signs of fighting, and maybe knowing that her sister is next causes Jen to put up a heroic fight. We mentioned earlier Jen had intercourse with her boyfriend Sammy, so his DNA profile, along with man number two, or the second donator of sperm, is found inside her sister Sarah. And I said sperm, that's not technically an absolute. This could have been just epithelial cells that he left. That's not a part of the sperm. But actually, now that I think about it, somebody in this case commits or leaves a YSTR sperm. So that's got to be.
Well, actually, no, I think you're on a good path, because I was going to jump in and say, I do think that he did not use a condom, and I think that he did ejaculate into her. So let's go with that.
Okay. We mentioned earlier that Jen had had intercourse with her boyfriend Sammy. So his DNA profile, along with man number two, or the second donator of sperm, is found inside her sister Sarah. So Sarah takes both the backlash of Sammy's as well as this second donator. Sammy's DNA helped put this crime's timeline together. So I'm glad that they had intercourse that day, because it really does help things work out in a timeline. Sarah also has Sammy's profile when they do the rape kit on Sarah. So we know that Sarah is raped after Jennifer by man number two. Although we believe Sarah was alive for the first assault, she does show signs of being molested after she dies. From Bev Lowery's book, it's a quote, "In death, Sarah will lie less than 3 feet from her sister, on her back, still gagged, wrist bound behind her, blackened legs spread, and an ice cream scoop on the concrete floor between her thighs, its handle pointed towards her pubic bone." Eliza is raped by man number one, and they're uncertain as to how extensive the rape assault is because she's going to be badly burned in the fire. We know that she was raped first by the ice cream scoop, and that is going to be then used to molest Sarah. We know this because the epithelial cells of Eliza are also found on Sarah and on the scoop. Epithelial cells are skin cells, mouth cells, vaginal cells, basically any skin cells that are naturally sloughed off. The ice cream scoop will be placed between Sarah's legs. She is splayed out, and the scoop is specifically placed for police to find. After being forced to strip, Eliza places her run over, shabby looking white Reeboks alongside Jennifer's black pair in a neat pile against the wall next to the steel back doors. Eliza will be found lying spread eagle on the top of Sarah, placed there by the killers. The skin of her athletic young legs split apart by the radiant heat of the sweeping flames. Bound, gagged, and like Jennifer, she's burned bald and faceless. In years to come, Maria Thomas refers to December 6, 1991 as the night they burned up my daughter. We know that after the girls are raped, that they are lined up on their knees, execution style, with their arms pulled behind their back, and the men tell them to put their foreheads to the ground. We know this because of the bullet angles at autopsy. All four are shot in the back of the head with a .22. .22s are not usually fatal guns, but at point blank, the bullet enters the brain, rattles around because it really doesn't have the force to exit. The bullets are found inside three girls' brains at autopsy. The men believe that all four girls are dead and decide for whatever reason they're going to stack the bodies, which you see on our map. The first is Sarah on the bottom of the stack, Eliza, then Jen, and we believe Amy is on top of the stack. The men then light a fire. Because the girls were bound, you can tell that the men pulled them by the elbow to move them a few feet into the pile. Eliza is also pulled onto the stack similarly by the elbow as her hands are found bound. And we know Jen is not bound because one arm is behind her backbone and one is pulled out and she has no ligature marks.
I want to jump in real fast and do you know how hard it is to flip over and move a dead body? I wonder why they go to all this work if they're trying to make it such a quick crime. I wonder why they stack the bodies.
I don't know.
Do you think that they are just thinking that the fire will do more damage if they're all in one area?
Well, it means that you can set a fire in a smaller area if the girls are in that smaller area. So perhaps that's the reason that the perpetrators decided that that was a good idea, because with the bodies spread out, so there's three bodies in the stack and then Amy rolls off the stack. And would they have had to then have gone over and set Amy on fire and this? I don't know. Is it just too much work or is it easier to just pull them into the stack?
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of work. It's very fortunate that Amy was on top because if she wasn't, she might not have been able to get out from underneath those bodies.
True.
So, okay.
The last girl's Amy, but Amy's not dead yet. She must have moved her head and the .22 grazed the side of her cheek. The .22 bullet exits and is going to be found at the scene. If you look at our map, blood splatter is found on the office wall. It's believed to be Amy's, whose exit wound would have produced splatter in that direction. However, the blood's not tested by forensic investigators. The other three girls would not have produced spatter because there is no exit wound. Amy is at the top of the stack. She crawls off the stack of bodies, clinging to life. Amy has Jennifer's DNA under her nails, so Jennifer had to be under her if, in fact, Amy's scraping her hands to move herself off the stack. She goes along the ground and the wall, moving towards the direction of the front of the store. Handprints and blood are found along the baseboard. Again, we can't confirm it's Amy's blood, but she's the only girl to be found in the middle of the back room, not in the stack in the corner with the other girls. We have a pretty good idea of what happens to Amy next.
Okay, so the men notice that Amy is not dead, and one picks up Amy, and he kind of, I believe he like shoves his arms underneath her arms and like just picks her up into a standing position. And he puts his 38 against the back of her head, and she's shot execution style, falling into a supine position or face up, and that's how she'll be found. The bullet is headed in the direction of the sink by the bathroom, according to blood splatter. So all the blood splatter would be found along this one wall. But again, we had stated that it was never tested. The .380 bullet is found inside Amy's skull at autopsy, and the casing is found underneath her in a drain. This would have killed Amy immediately. Some theorists of this case have thought maybe if fire and rescue would have gotten there sooner, or this or that they would have found Amy alive, but she's shot before the men set the fire. After being shot with the .22 and then the .380 into the skull, she was probably dead fairly quickly. So the fire is then started on the shelf that the girls were originally placed under, and it is stocked again with styrofoam. We believe that as one man was starting the fire, the other is trying to pry the back door open. But it will take years before anyone notices the tool marks on the side of the door. So we're going to get into this. It might not be until the second episode. Years and years later, 10 years later, these kids are going to go on trial for this crime. And so a forensic analysis looks through the photos, and he finds a bunch of stuff that was missed in the original investigation. And so he's the one that notices the tool marks on the door. And I think I stated earlier that we have a lot of questions about the door. I can't find a picture of it. And so we're wondering if the back door was pried open from the front or from the inside or from the outside. Because in our theory, the three-man theory, if there's a man sitting in the truck, is he trying to get the door open from the outside, or is the second man inside trying to get the door open from the inside? That's a question we just really cannot find the answer to. Anyways, it seems like both men inside are busy though. One is starting the fire and the other is planning their escape. We also did a lot of research into styrofoam, which is a highly flammable substance. It smells sweet and it burns like napalm. It has been argued that accelerant was used and that accelerant was not used. However, at the scene, the bodies never got swabbed for accelerant. They never tested for accelerant at the scene. But Austin Fire Department says it didn't smell of accelerant, nor was there accelerant burn patterns left. We believe that the styrofoam was enough to cause this fire. The fire burned quickly, but also stayed contained to the back. So again, maybe that answers that question as to why they want them contained, is because they know the styrofoam burns hot, but it's really not going to cause a large fire, because once it burns up, it's kind of gone. Like we were saying, it turns into this napalm liquid, kind of molten lava-like substance, and it will burn anything in its path. Not only were they set on fire with the styrofoam, but bottles of chocolate, caramel, and other toppings were also poured into the girls' wounds. We believe this was to maybe try and cover up evidence and also send a message to the police department. We are unsure. So they say the wounds. And so are we talking about that they put these substances in their head wounds? Or are we talking about that? I mean, they use the ice cream scoop. So I'm wondering if these toppings were actually placed in their vagina. Again, that's information that we just can't find, but that is one of our theories. The same conclusion can be made about, again, the ice cream scoop that was placed, and 2 girls were molested or raped by that ice cream scoop. Okay, so to sum up what has just transpired in the last 40 minutes, the girls were robbed, held at gunpoint, stripped naked, raped, assaulted, killed, flipped over, facing up, stacked. The fire is lit. and the men are out of the building. A beat cop on patrol almost immediately sees the smoke coming from the yogurt shop in the strip center. He radios for the Austin Fire Department and assumes it's a kitchen fire, and he admits he didn't think anyone was inside. But fortunately, this police officer did see the smoke pretty quickly. AFD takes 6 minutes to arrive. It should have taken 4, but they took a wrong turn. And again, some people argue if they would have made it in 4 minutes, would Amy have still been alive? But we don't believe that. The investigators think the fire was set at 11:42. At 11:47, police would be on the scene, and Jen's watch stops from the fire at 11:48. So these men had 5 or less minutes to set this fire and get out of the area. Remember, we believe the truck is in the alley, and as they drive into the night, we are sure they must have heard the sirens. So that is the end of our episode for today. I do, like I said, want to thank some people just in this first episode that have helped us start this podcast. So I'd like to give a special thanks to my husband, who taught me how to use all of my equipment and do editing. He sometimes does original music beats and edits in his original music. So I'll tag his Instagram into ours so that if you guys ever want beats, he's an excellent producer. My sister-in-law, Johnson, not to be confused with Jones, who's my mom, she also helps me with research and writing. She has a psychology background, and she is also currently studying criminal justice. So she's a great resource for us. Charlie Stevenson has also done music for us. I can link his music as well. My best friend of 15 years did the episode art and our kitchen table research logo. So we want to thank her. And we want to thank everyone who has listened to us talk about rape and murder for over a year. Our husbands have helped us with gun knowledge. Another one of my friends is a paralegal, and she's helped us with a lot of legal jargon when we start getting into some more of our trial cases. Thanks to everyone who made this happen for me and Jones. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate presenting this information to you guys. And we hope you guys like our podcast, and we hope you guys stay tuned for episode 2, which you can go ahead and binge now. So we want you guys to have a great day. Jones?
I don't really have a whole lot to say. I do have a couple of comments about the story from tonight. One is that your conjecture is that one of the guys picked up Amy under the armpits, facing her. No, he would have had to have been in the back of her to shoot. But I also don't know how you can put your arms under somebody's armpits and manage to get a .380 bullet in them. So I don't know whether that's the way it happened or not. I just wonder about that.
I see Amy is laying down. It sounds like she's maybe army crawling because she's leaving her handprints along the baseboard. Amy's crawling, and this guy comes along, and like you said, from the back, he scoops her up and basically lifts her to where she's forced to stand. And at that point, I believe, is when he draws his gun. And we are going to go over several questions and theories at the end of our second episode. So definitely stay tuned, because we're actually going to go through quite a few questions that some of the stuff we haven't even gotten into yet. So do you have any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. When we said that the caramel and the ice cream toppings were poured into wounds, I thought about that for a minute, and you're right. The question is, what wounds? They certainly have 22 shots into their brains, but I don't think there's a mechanism to get caramel or chocolate syrup into a girl's vagina without some kind of device to inject it, because they can't.
Those toppings like in, say, ketchup bottles that have just we have no proof of that. Yeah, no, we don't. This is our conjecture.
I always thought they were in big buckets, like the girls, they might have refilled them at the kitchen, at the counter.
Sure.
Into smaller bottles, but in the back, they would have been bigger buckets of things.
Actually, speaking of that, I believe that the lights and everything are still on in the front of the store as far as we
They
know. And the fire department gets there. And so I'm guessing that these men do not want to go into the front of the store because a witness would easily be able to see them if the lights are still on, yet the
Right.
store is supposed to be closed.
Right.
And we do have actually a lot of witnesses and a lot of traffic through that area. I'm surprised they got away, but when the first officer arrives and he's thinking this is, just a kitchen fire, they have no idea that there are bodies inside. And
Right.
he doesn't even know if he should be looking for perpetrators fleeing a crime scene.
Right.
So we will kind of talk about how they flee. Another one of our cases in Las Cruces that is very similar to this, we talk about the same thing, the getaway.
Right. Right.
What else?
I don't have anything else. Let's go ahead and end this.
Okay, well, thank you guys for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned in for part 2, and we will see you guys in a minute. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.